Hey, folks. Fall is here, as you know, and fall needs its own wardrobe. Well, you need your own wardrobe for fall. You want it to be comfortable. You want coordinated pieces so you don't have to think too much about what goes together. If you want to look good without having to worry about it, I've got something for you. It's called Roan's Commuter Collection. I've been using Roan clothes now wearing, I guess, Roan clothes for years. And Roan is the most comfortable, breathable, versatile set of products known to man. Roan has premium pieces to elevate every occasion. They have super comfortable pants, dress shirts, quarter zips, polos, blazers. Frankly, I put it together for a suit sometimes. Roan's signature technical fabrics stretch in every direction. They breathe, they fight odor and elements, effortlessly work everywhere. So you can stay calm and collected even when life takes unexpected turns. Each piece in Roan's Commuter Collection is made to coordinate and layer for an instantly elevated look. And the best thing about this stuff, it has wrinkle release technology. 100% machine washable. You hang it up, the wrinkles literally unwrinkle themselves. You wear it for 5 minutes, the wrinkles go away. It has that Gold Fusion anti-odor technology. I am constantly wearing, whenever I'm in a situation where I'm traveling or I've got to wear a nice dress shirt when I go out, these I keep from a wrinkly or for work. But if I go out, if I have some event, my Roan comes out of the closet because I don't like to iron. The stuff is incredibly comfortable, and again, traveling, maybe I'll wear it 2 or 3 days in a row. Nobody knows, unless you've been watching the show, like when I go to Vegas for that conference, because it doesn't smell, and it looks great. Machine washability, collars maintain their shape for life. The Commuter Collection can get you through any workday and straight into whatever comes next. Head to roan.com/Majority Report. Use the promo code Majority Report. Save 20% off your whole order. That's 20% off your entire order when you head to Roan, RHONE.com/Majority Report and use the code Majority Report. It's time to embody your most confident self. And now time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Monday, November 11th, 2024. My name is Sam Seder. It's the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, David Dayen will be joining us, executive editor of the American Prospect magazine, on the triumphant return of corruption. Also on the program today, recriminations, excuses, ideas of what went wrong abound in the wake of massive Democratic losses. Republicans on the brink of officially winning the House of Representatives. They have flipped the Senate. Trump names Thomas Homan deportation czar so he can avoid Senate confirmation. Meanwhile, Lee Stefanik nominated for UN ambassador. Trump also calls for recess appointments in the Senate as he weighs in on a Senate leader fight. Massachusetts teachers on strike in 2 cities there. California votes to ban forced prison labor. Judge Merchan to decide whether Trump hush money conviction can stand. And the House fast-tracks a bill that's going to allow Trump to target nonprofits. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is,
Monday.
Yes, just Monday. Also,
Fun Day Mondays are canceled.
No,
Fun Day
more.
Mondays, we may be going back to the table with that branding. We should also say that as of about 105 years ago, more or less, it is Veterans Day today. I guess it started off as Armistice Day. And we have something like 6% veterans in this country, split. I think half are Vietnam vets, a quarter from the Gulf War, and then another quarter from the wake of 9/11. I guess, thank you to veterans, and I'm sorry that our government, is so quick to send you to war, frankly. And how we're still not providing veterans with the services they need, but also we should be expanding some of what veterans get and just have everyone get those things. But, you need to be able to convince people to go and fight in more instances than not for corporate interests. So, but
If everyone gets carrots, the carrots and sticks doesn't work so much.
Exactly. Exactly. So I should also just note, obviously I have been off since Tuesday night. Want to thank everybody who came out for our election show. And I think I forgot to mention at one point we had contemplated it being a 20th anniversary party. And fortunately, we did not get to all the balloons and the glass ceiling that we wanted to get for that celebration.
Very Mask of the Red Death sort of atmosphere.
Exactly. Wednesday, I want to appreciate all the condolences that folks sent. Wednesday morning, I rushed up to Massachusetts for my mother's funeral, and in accordance to Jewish tradition, was sitting Shiva last week. And I appreciate the condolences. Good job, Emma, holding down the fort in one of the most uncomfortable type of times to come on air, frankly.
Thank you.
Same Bradley and Matt as well. I've had to do that a couple of times, and it is it's difficult. People get, I don't know if people were as shocked this time as they were, frankly, in 2016. In many respects, this time around could be a lot more problematic, and last time was very problematic. We have talked about this, and we're going to be spending the next 4 years trying to figure out both how we can disempower the Trump administration from doing their worst things, and how we can create political power to make for better things. It's okay to be bummed out, and it's okay to feel like can't deal with politics for a little while. I want to reiterate, though, and I sort of caught the tail end of this on Twitter. We had literally almost an immeasurably small amount of people who unsubscribe from our YouTube channel, I wouldn't even know this because I don't usually look at these things until like I got some type of report that it was reported that we had lost, subscribers. And I'm like, what? And we get dips like this all the time, frankly. But the next day, we got more than we usually get. And I will say also in terms of memberships, like we don't have huge spikes in membership and we don't have huge dips in membership. We basically truck along and we have a net, there's churn, but we have a net positive. So we haven't, if I hadn't known that the election was last week, we would have no reason to even look at the stats or wonder what was going on because nothing really did. I think people are, now our show, I think to a certain extent, the way that we do things around here lend itself for people who understand that politics are not just about elections. In fact, elections may be, in some respects, not the least important necessarily, but simply their import is only a function of what you do in between the times of the elections. Like if you're doing what you need to be doing and you're building political power and you're communicating and you're developing relationships and you're strengthening your community and you're strengthening your social ties, elections tend to take care of themselves, at least in the context of, like the normal amount of effort. And there's a lot of work, obviously, that we need to do, whether you are a progressive or a leftist or a socialist. I mean, I don't know, or, you refer to yourself as a centrist. I mean, we have a wide range of people who listen to this show, but there's stuff obviously that we got to do. We're also going to talk about, sort of the failures of the campaign to some extent, because, really the most relevant part is what narratives get built now and how they're leveraged in the future. Because you hear, I can tell you what Joe Scarborough and a lot of the sort of like the never Trump Republicans who have infiltrated their way into the Democratic coalition, what they want to pretend was the issue.
Wokeness.
Joe Scarborough read a Maureen Dowd piece on air this morning about how wokeness is broke.
Oh, so I guessed right. Wow, what were the odds?
And we're going to spend more time on this tomorrow. We don't have a guest. We'll go through that. Also tomorrow, I'll talk about the Tim Pool interview, which I never got around to. There wasn't a lot of highlights there. Obviously, the biggest one was that I clogged their toilet. But there was also a couple of points where I think we're really relevant. And so we will talk about that tomorrow. In the meantime, this is a fascinating dynamic that is portrayed in this NBC interview. It shows the failure of the political communication by everybody, frankly. It also shows the abject failure of something, and I raised it this morning in the office, and everybody was just like, you've been talking about this for a long time. Donald Trump is a Republican. The president of the United States, regardless of whether it was going to be, Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, what they do is largely going to be dictated by the party they represent. And if you do not tie that person to the party and create a greater narrative, instead you come up with like MAGA extremists, like 14 different qualifiers about a Republican, and you make Donald Trump distinct from the rest of the party, you're going to end up with problems like this.
Mario and Mireya Alvarez found the American dream in Las Vegas.
Would you like some coffee?
They came to the U.S. from Mexico and Guatemala in the 80s. With his job in a supermarket and her job in a casino, they bought a house and raised 3 children. Now they wonder if their kids and grandkids will inherit that dream.
Is it still possible to do that for the younger generation?
That's my main concern right now. What's going to happen to our new generation? Nowadays, they're not even able to move out of their houses anymore because everything is so expensive.
Life wasn't expensive as it is right now.
First PlayStation.
We first met Mario back in February when he was seriously considering a vote for Donald Trump. He was undecided with previous votes for George W. Bush, Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Biden. At the last minute, he broke for Kamala Harris. But today, he's not upset about the results.
I'm kind of like more happy than upset. Why? Because Donald Trump is going to help the country with the economy.
The whole household is happy. Mireya and their 29-year-old son, Mario Jr., did vote for Trump.
Initially, I will say I did not agree with him. And then I started seeing that he was not afraid to speak his mind. And I noticed that he was not scared to say what he felt, regardless of what people would say. And I think I respect that about him.
So you liked his kind of brashness, his personality?
Yeah, I would say yes.
They're not alone. Across the country, Donald Trump made huge inroads with Latino voters. According to NBC exit polls, 55% of Latino men nationwide voted for Trump, a 19-point jump from 2020. Among Latina women like Mireya, an 8-point gain. And while Vice President Harris won a slight majority of the Latino vote overall, Trump increased his support 14 points from the last election. The top issue among Latino voters, like it is for the Alvarez family, the economy, with immigration a distant fourth. Mario and Mireya both crossed the border illegally as teenagers, but became citizens under President Ronald Reagan's amnesty. They see themselves as different from migrants crossing the border today.
In what way do you think they're different?
The people that are coming here are the criminals. You know, the ones that did something bad in their country, they're running away from their law.
Despite having close family members who are undocumented,
Migrant invasion.
they don't believe they'll end up in Trump's crosshairs.
When you hear Trump promise mass deportations, do you worry about them?
Yes and no, because the ones that I know, they're doing good. They're not breaking any laws.
I believe he's going to start deporting all the bad people.
Trump won over the Alvarez family.
I don't think we need to hear anymore. I mean, that's I mean, that may be the case, but highly unlikely. And what they just described was the Obama administration policy.
Yeah.
That is not what the guy who was just named the deportation czar of the Trump administration has in mind. As far as they're concerned, all of those immigrants are criminal by their very nature.
But you see there how he was able to successfully divide Latino voters. I mean, it should be noted that the biggest gain with Latino men is, hey, there was a woman on the other side of the ticket. That's a part of it. But also, if you're a Latino American, you're more likely than other groups to be a first or second generation American like those folks there. And it's been very hard to build wealth and accumulate money in this neoliberal economic system, basically in the entire time that they've been in this country. And so if you sell, hey, the economy is going to be better and we won't be like the criminals, we're the good citizens, and the Democrats just completely abandon that immigration narrative.
And play into the crime narrative that is activating it among those people too.
100%.
It gave them the ability to kind of see themselves as American almost, where it's like we're not the criminals like he's talking about. We're good Americans. And it's this, whiteness changes over time. Italian and Irish Americans became included into whiteness. in the 20th century. But, that's part of what he sold, was this vision of prosperity that also included the ability, this idea of economic opportunity, him being a rich guy, but also, hey, you're American, not like the other half of the criminals that we're going after.
And we should also say, again, this is the danger of making this just about Donald Trump and making him distinct from Republicans, because this is the Republican agenda. And the way you inoculate yourself from the idea that, like, well, I like the way he speaks, he's fun, or he doesn't seem to care.
Yep.
Is, well, okay. You may find him fun, but all the people who he owes for getting elected, you're not going to find so fun. And so we shall see. I mean, I have no doubt these people are going to overreach, but it's going to come at the expense of real human beings. And we'll see. I hope those folks are right, that just the bad people have bad things happen to them.
But as you
not
said,
the good people.
Obama was emphasizing, those were Obama's deportations, were emphasizing the quote unquote bad.
100%. That was the entire thing. Got a couple of sponsors, then we'll get to David Dayen. If supporting a Foundation of Health was a sport, you would want Ritual on your team. They made Essential for Men. It's a multivitamin. It's based solely on science and designed to help fill common nutrient gaps within the diet with 10 key nutrients. I'm a little bit older than I was, obviously. I guess everybody is. But I started taking Ritual, I don't know, a couple of years ago. My doctor would tell me you need more vitamin D in particular. You should take a multivitamin. And the problem is I would then go from the doctor's office. I would buy the multivitamin. I would finish the multivitamin within whatever it was, 30 days, or I would forget sometimes. And then I would forget to get more. One of the things I loved about Ritual is just the fact that they send it on a subscription basis. But the other beautiful thing about Ritual, it's science-backed multivitamin. It's for men 18 plus with high quality and traceable ingredients in both in clean and bioavailable forms. It has 2 key nutrients and 2 delayed release capsules per day. The beauty of this is that not only do I not forget to take them because they keep coming, but you can also, they're gentle on an empty stomach. So if I remember to take them at any given time, I can. I don't have to wait till I eat and then forget to take them again. Ritual vitamins are vegan. They're non-GMO, project verified. They're gluten and major allergen free. They are certified B Corporation and made traceable. Ritual uses scientific tools to lower carbon packaging, prioritize sustainability and sustainably sourced ingredients, I should say, and set ambitious climate goals because they are a B Corp. They also happen to be female founded. They hold themselves accountable to not just their company's financial health, but the health of the people and our planet. Essential for Men is a quality multivitamin from a company you can actually trust. Get 25% off your first month for a limited time at ritual.com/majority. Start Ritual or add Essential for Men to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/majority for 25% off. Also, sponsoring the program today, we live in a very polarized political environment. Privacy services that stop personally identifiable information, such as cell phone numbers and home addresses, from being easily searched and purchased, are becoming a necessity. Your data is everywhere, folks. Everywhere. You can't always control whether or not you're a target, but you can make it harder for politically motivated threat actors to escalate threats by taking a proactive approach to the security of your personal information. I have been using this service for years and years, way before. I mean, they just recently came to want to sponsor the program. I've been using this, bless you, this service for years. It's called Delete Me. And as a person who exists somewhat publicly, especially someone who shares their opinions online, I am hyper aware of OPSEC, as we call it, or safety and security. It is super easy to find out information about you, about other folks online. All this data hanging on the internet can have actual consequences in the real world. What you do, you sign up and provide Delete Me with exactly what information you want deleted, and their experts take it from there. Delete Me sends you regularly personalized privacy reports showing what info they found, where, and what steps they've taken to get it removed. Delete Me is not just a one-time service because all these data brokers, they keep regenerating it. And Delete Me then keeps deleting it. So it's an ongoing process. Put it simply, Delete Me does all the hard work of wiping you and your family's personal information from data broker websites. Check it out. You can take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me now at a special discount for our listeners. Today, get 20% off your Delete Me's plans by texting majority to 64,000. That's text majority to the number 6400. That's majority to 64000. 3 zeros, 64,000. We will put the links in the podcast and YouTube descriptions. Quick break. David Dayen, executive editor of the American Prospect. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Joining us now, the executive editor of the American Prospect. One of my daily reads. Really, frankly, since David Dayen took it over, what was it now? 5 years ago? 5 years? Oh, geez. David, welcome to the show. Not the interview I want to do with you today. I was hoping that we would be doing your day one agenda for the Harris administration. That's not going to happen.
That has been put in a file listed 2029 or later.
Right. What? All right. I don't know. Your first thoughts, I guess.
Well, I think that there's a perspective that we all have to take on. In the last 20 years, there have been 10 national elections. In 9 of those 10 elections, either the presidency or one chamber of Congress has changed hands. This is only the 3rd time in American history that there have been 3 consecutive one-term presidencies. The only other 2 times were the very tumultuous period before the Civil War and the post-Reconstruction period from 1876 to 1896, which was the height of the Gilded Age. We are in an unusually volatile political moment, and I believe that is rooted in a lack of ability, desire, name your price, on the part of both political parties to meet the needs of the American people.
And so people are constantly dissatisfied and flip.
Right. They ping pong back and forth. Maybe this party will help me. Maybe that party will help me. I mean, in that 20-year period, there are probably 3 or 4 elections that at the time were determined to be realignments, including this one. The 2008 election of Barack Obama was said that now there's an enduring Democratic majority. The 2016 election of Donald Trump was said that now there's an enduring Democratic majority. The 2024 election is being termed in that fashion as well. All of those prior so-called realignments, the very next election, the voters moved rapidly in the direction of the other party. So something is going on here, and it has to do with, there are structural issues that speak to this dissatisfaction, both culturally and I think constitutionally. And there are issues with the parties themselves not speaking to that discontent or speaking to it in a way that ultimately is unsatisfying once the results are shown.
Well, it's also global, right? The anti-incumbency phenomenon, this cycle, which maybe when you're looking back at history, if we're talking about the Gilded Age or Reconstruction, it could be viewed as this dissatisfaction with neoliberalism in the West that creates that volatility and that lack of meaning in other Western governments as well, which they've seen.
Yeah, I think that's certainly true globally. This is the first time in 120 years where every major industrialized nation saw their incumbent party lose. That is, it didn't matter whether that party was ideologically on the left or on the right. But more practically, that speaks to the inflation that happened after the pandemic. And I think what we've clearly learned is that people hate inflation. That when you're talking about a situation of mass unemployment, even if it's extreme, you're talking about 10 million families, maybe 15 million families if it's really, really bad. When you're talking about inflation, that affects every family. Every family that isn't fabulously wealthy enough to not notice. And clearly, that has had a very strong pull in the direction of an anti-incumbency mood, and it's happened everywhere.
And even if in certain cohorts wages theoretically outpace inflation, that seems to be not mitigating in any way to people's experience. I mean, it may or may not be mitigating in reality. I don't know, because it's one thing to look at sort of the broad statistics. I'm not necessarily getting that wage increase, and my eggs have definitely gone up type of situation. But so,
yeah, I mean, I think that, there are a couple other factors here that cut against this kind of argument that, look, we had a great economy and voters picked the other party. And so providing great things doesn't work. This is a bit of an infuriating mode of argument that I've seen deployed by many people who should know better. We had a pop-up pandemic era safety net that was put in place in 2020, and all of it was taken away under Joe Biden.
Right.
Now, forget about who's responsible for that.
Right.
The fact of the matter is that if you had Medicaid and you were one of the millions and millions of people that had it taken away from you, it was taken away from you under Joe Biden. If you had boosts in unemployment insurance, it was taken away from you under Joe Biden.
Child tax credit.
Child
tax credit. You're getting $300 a month, and all of a sudden it goes away. Nobody's out there. I mean, literally, I've been saying this every day since the election. Nobody out there is going well, I appreciate the Democrats giving it to me, but Joe Manchin just made it impossible for me to have it. People don't know this. I mean,
your student loans restarted too. For 40 million people, your student loans restarted under Biden.
On some level,
forget about the agency of who actually is responsible for that. That's the lived experience. And the other part of the lived experience is the rise in interest rates, meaning that it's just the cost of borrowing went way, way up in the last 2 years, and it hasn't really subsided.
Right.
We've had one interest rate tick down. The second one happened just after the election last week. That means a mortgage, an auto loan, a consumer loan is all more under this regime. And so
and I should
you
say about
can't
mortgage
really
rates,
say that,
David, I just say about mortgage rates, they didn't really come down commensurate with the drop in the Fed interest
They haven't
rate.
yet. No, they haven't yet. Although they did come down before in anticipation of it. It was kind of
But
a
then
sell the news
it popped
situation.
back up. Yes.
Yeah.
But, I mean, when you think of those type of headwinds, it's almost it is in some ways surprising that it's still as close as it is, right? I mean, like, Donald Trump got the same.
I don't want to soft pedal what Joe Biden did. There were a lot of things. Full employment is a thing. The actual core inflation of certain goods has gone down. We actually haven't seen grocery inflation in over a year. But you can't escape that there was a reality that people felt that don't match aggregate statistics. And I think that's the really important thing. The other thing is that the things that Joe Biden did that are probably going to be the most impactful over time are happening on very long time horizons. We right now have the biggest boost in manufacturing construction practically that we've seen in American history. However, that's manufacturing construction done mostly by itinerant workers and often by foreign workers. This is not permanent manufacturing jobs in a community. We don't have that just yet because it takes time to build a factory. Similarly, there were some unforced errors in this regard. The Inflation Reduction Act provision around negotiating drug prices in Medicare, some of the negotiations have begun, but the actual effect in terms of prices doesn't hit until 2026. That's how the law was written, and it has no help to
Why do they do this?
who are trying to.
Why do they do this?
Exactly.
They did this with Obamacare too. Like, I mean, like they. And I understand on Obamacare, they did this because, they needed to make it seem like it was cheaper. And so they needed to sort of like elongate the period of time that it was.
Just the opposite with this. It makes it more expensive.
Yes, why would you do that? It's a
made
political
the Inflation
matter.
Reduction Act
Why
more
would you do that?
expensive to not do it that way.
And
the bottom line is on this one is that it's a crass benefit for lobbyists. I mean, it was just to delay this to give drug companies time to earn more profits. It was the small coterie of pro-pharma Democrats that said, okay, well, I guess we have to do this, but let's do it later. Let's push it out. Let's let them gain some more profits. And so that was the political result of that.
I mean, and it seems to me that the Trump administration could be in position to repeal that and not pay the price of repealing it because nobody knows it's in effect. It would be in effect anyways. I mean, so I guess.
Or on the flip side, they could just take credit for it. I mean,
or they may just take credit for it. Either way, it's. I just want to go back to this. The loss thing, because I think it may not be fair to say, where's my child tax credits, Joe Biden, and then your proxy Kamala Harris. But it seems to me, and I imagine you and I had this conversation, and we certainly had it, Emma and I, that the die was somewhat cast in March of 2021. The Democrats had passed the American Rescue Act. The Republican Party their response was to be outraged at 3 Dr. Seuss books that were no longer being published. I'm being literally, this is literally the case. They were this massive bump in social welfare gets passed by the Democrats, almost exclusively Democrats. I mean, like in both chambers.
Yeah.
And
no, it was exclusively. There
all
wasn't a
they're
single
talking
vote.
about, All they're talking about is Dr. Seuss.
Do you have this chart, Bradley? This just helps augment your point here. I mean, this is where like there was this drop off.
Well, this is in March of 2022.
I know,
but I'm talking about 2021. And instead of going right in to the Build Back Better,
right?
Instead of like going into those negotiations and saying, I want to build Chuck Schumer and I want it September 15th of this year, he invites in the Republicans. They dick around for 2 or 3 months. That's when Joe Manchin's audio comes out of him, basically starting to realize like, oh, wait a second, I got to go the other way with this, even after he had said $4 trillion. And then they let Sinema and Portman come in and dick around, and they lose all of the momentum. They allow people like Manchin to develop the war chest and the relationships to fight against this. And then it gets mired for another year and a half, and it ends up being split apart.
Well, I don't know that even in your proposed quick strike scenario that Joe Manchin then becomes a reliable partner of the Democratic Party.
I just don't think he would have had
and
the
same
time.
with Kirsten Sinema. I mean, no, I think that the reality is that there wasn't really a working majority for what certainly the vast majority of Democrats wanted at that point. And so they had to be brought along. Now, it's deeply frustrating, and it was a real problem that was kind of masked by the Dobbs decision and what happened in the 2022 elections and candidate equality on the Republican side that masked a loss. Actually, the national popular vote in the House in 2022 was Democrats lost that by a couple points, and they're going to lose the presidency national popular vote by probably the exact same amount, by like 2 points. So really nothing changed from 2022 to 2024 in that regard. It is certainly true that spending the better part of 2 years of that crucial part of Biden's presidency mired in negotiations where the most vocal and leading face of the Democratic Party from anyone who would just sort of look up at the television and see it was Joe Manchin, because he was the one being asked about everything, was not good for the brand of the Democratic Party. I mean, that's certainly true.
Well, neither was Biden. I mean, that's the problem is just that in this information age, right, we're seeing some of the breakdowns of how these Trump voters consume their information. And a lot of this can be condescending or whatever, but it is obvious that a lot social media and online news, or people that paid attention less to the news, broke for Trump at the end of the day. And Biden not being able to articulate this kind of stuff towards the end of his presidency, I think really hurt, because there was no overarching vision for what the Democrats were selling. I mean, you know what Trump's vision is when you hear him talk. He's going to be a breaker, and he's a nativist, and he's going to crack down on immigration and whatever. But what was the brand of what the Democrats were offering? I think it was really hurt in the time period where there was a leadership vacuum and a branding vacuum that Biden contributed to. And then when they talk about democracy, how can you make the case that democracy's on the ballot when they didn't even go through a primary process, which creates, in hindsight, some democratic legitimacy, but also Biden's presence undercuts the democracy point in and of itself because he seems incompetent and unable to do the job. How can you sell that urgency with him being the face? I mean,
I am less. I don't think that there was a single person out there who voted against or voted for Trump because there was no primary. But the loss of a primary, as a process in and of itself, would have maybe made a candidate more sensitive to what actual issues were out there.
Or spotlighted, other Democratic policy proposals for a year and a half.
Exactly.
As opposed to this whole lead up to that debate where Democrats weren't out there, on the presidential level. The first debate with Biden.
That would have required Biden to have left the office.
Exactly.
Year and change ago. policies for future administrations. You've got that in your 2029 file. God willing, what do you see? Like, assuming that they have the trifecta, or really the quad, with the judiciary. I mean, because that to me is most relevant. Like, where do you see? What is the opportunity? Are there opportunities to slow their roll? I mean, I think there's going to be an overreach, but I wonder, like, from your perspective, David, like, when you sit back and go, as you think about, where the American prospect's going to be over the next 4 years, like, what angles are you guys contemplating?
Well, I mean, the first thing, just to speak to some of Emma's comments, I don't know who the Democratic Party is right now. I mean, who are you talking about? Who are the leaders of the party? What does the party stand for? I mean, I think the biggest thing is that Democrats need to figure that out for themselves. They're not going to have a lot of opportunities outside of litigation at the state level, which certainly can slow down some of the things that the Trump administration is going to try to do. But there's a sort of parallel conversation that needs to be held about what this party really stands for and is about. There's kind of a huge set of internal contradictions that need to be worked out and managed. There's a contradiction between a historically working class party and a billionaire donor class. There's a contradiction between a historically, well, I mean, maybe not even that historically pacifist or anti-war faction, and the very neoconservative ascendancy of a lot of key stakeholders in the party. And so I think that that is probably what Democrats are going to need to focus on during this time in the wilderness. Going back to what I brought up initially, is there's no reason not to believe that 2026 will not be, I think I did the double negatives right, the 10th out of the 11 last elections where a chamber of Congress or the presidency changes hands. It is very likely that there will be a backlash to Trump. There was in the 2017 to 2021 period. He lost the 2018 elections pretty handily. Seems like when he's not on the ballot, he cannot transfer his base to individual House and Senate candidates. And so Democrats are somewhat well positioned to take back the House, at least. The Senate's going to be a much taller order given the map and the various kind of inadequacies of Senate apportionment and just the real difficulties that Democrats have in even lightly red states. So there's no reason that Democrats could defer this conversation once again and muddle through and win the House in 26 and then come back and have that primary in 28 and do what they do. What I would say is that Democrats have a massive tendency towards conflict aversion. We see that in the inability to have any conversation about the House and Senate leadership right now. Right. Nobody is talking about the fact that Chuck Schumer, who famously said, if we lose 2 blue-collar workers in Pennsylvania, then we'll gain 2 suburban moms, and we can do that across the country. The very strategy that has now locked Democrats out of a majority coalition in the nation. The fact that there is no, outside of random people, no institutional calls for a leadership election there. Same in the House. There is a bias towards not having these hard conversations, not having these discussions. And finger pointing and recriminations is not having the discussion, by the way. It's one thing to just say, the progressives should get, the party should get more progressive, the party should get more moderate, or we should throw out this part of the tent, or we should throw out this member of the coalition. That's actually not having the discussion. That's just restating your priors. The truth is that we had a national swing away from Democrats at every level, in every subgroup. Democrats don't get to play the fun game that they play every time they lose an election, where they get to just pick one subgroup and blame them. It's their fault, and kick them out of the coalition, then we'll be better off. Never works. But Democrats can't do that now. They lost among everybody. They lost more in big cities than they did in small towns. They lost more among subgroups of color than they did among white people. So, like, you can't slice and dice on this and try to, put the calculation together for a majority. There is something structurally wrong, and until you actually have the conversation about it, we're just going to be spinning our wheels.
Is the that structurally wrong thing? Is it a policy thing, or is it a communications? I mean, I just remember in 2012, in the wake of the 2012 of Obama winning, that the Republican Party was like, we're doing an autopsy. And I just remember Sean Hannity going, folks, we've got to be more open to immigrants. And that lasted for like 3 or 4 months. And then all of a sudden they realized, like, actually, no, we don't. And then they went on what is now a 12-year crusade to demonize immigrants, and it worked. Yep. It worked, like, to the point where at the beginning
they got Democrats to help them
they basically pulled the Democrats into that vortex. Look, Obama deported a tremendous amount of people. It was, their strategy was supposedly in service of, like, trying to help DACA and DAPA and get to some type of, like, piece of legislation that would rationalize the whole process, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's poor tactics. Broadly speaking, their strategy was to welcome immigrants, even though in their minds they're like, the only way we can legitimately do it is to deport a ton as well. Aside from that, obviously not working, like, is it a question of reorientation of the, I mean, part of their communication strategy, frankly, was belied by the fact that, they're both, like, Mark Cuban's out there and they're running on, like, an anti-corporate record. Like, how do you,
right?
It's
What's
tough
the message
to square that circle, I guess.
I mean, that's why I said about the internal contradictions. Do you guys get mad when everybody's out there saying, well, what we need is a liberal Joe Rogan? And you're like, come on, man. We're right here.
I think, listen, she should have probably done just the Rogan that was there, because it's a problem. Does it bother me? No, there's no way to have the exact same thing as them on the right. Like, I've been down this road with Air America. Do we need more communication? Without a doubt, of course, but they also, there is a fundamental misunderstanding, it seems to me, within the campaign professionals, because you have people who are saying, like we mentioned, Joe Scarborough saying, we can't be the party of woke and whatnot. Kamala Harris was so I think effective at avoiding any of those conversations. People knew that she was a black woman, and I have no doubt that accounts for a significant percentage of votes against her. Like, she's not going to say, she could say, it is the sun is shining at 12 noon, And there's still going to be some skepticism. Well, like some irrational skepticism
Tuning
of her
out.
assertion, whatever, however it is, because, there are people who
'Cause
have.
They also had her on tape saying a bunch of stuff in 2019 as part of her
100%.
presidential race.
But the fact is that like their ability to run with that was at first stifled by the whole "you're weird" thing, because she's not running on this. She said it, yes, on tape. And we have Donald Trump saying that he's going to be a dictator on tape. We have Donald Trump saying, I'm going to grab, people's vaginas and I can get away with it on tape. But the reason why they're able to have their, a huge portion of their electorate believe that the agenda of the Democrats is to turn everybody transgender, as opposed to like, we just believe in rights for everybody, is because there was no response. And the proper response to them saying that is, you're weird. We're not talking about that. You're the ones who are talking about that. We don't have a plank that says we're going to impose transgenderism on everybody. You're the ones bringing this up. And they did not, so
that was a great messaging strategy that ended about 2 weeks after they started it, and they never put Tim Walz on television.
Well, exactly. Like that. I mean, I think in the Clinton loss, there was probably like 6, 7 but-fors, right? Like it was, the margins were close enough that if Comey later doesn't come out, maybe she wins. If she campaigns in Michigan and Wisconsin, maybe she wins. If, like there's literally, I think like a half dozen of those. In this instance, I think there's no one thing why she lost. There were too many things that contributed to it because the margins were too big. But there were mistakes made that I think are indicative of like sort of like a fear of confrontation, that they were overtaken by the people who wanted to be seen as bipartisan. And the same people who I think, and maybe it was just Joe Biden, said, let's bring the Republicans in when we have all the momentum before Build Back Better. It's the same mentality. And, I hope we
don't
grow
you
out
feel
of it.
like that? Don't you feel like that is a reflective of the broad mass of the Democratic base? I think the conflict aversion goes beyond the individual leaders in the party. I think they're a reflection of their constituents.
I think that's true. But I also think that you're a professional politician and there's a way in which you can be more effective. And maybe as you do that, you will see that people come along.
By the same token, you're a professional politician. And so the idea that you were forced by some interest group to say, let's take for an example what Kamala Harris, the ad that we saw over and over again, particularly on football games, the she's for they, them, and we're for you, where she was talking about transgenders and surgeries and for incarcerated individuals. The idea that she was, the way that it's talked about is that she was practically held at gunpoint by the progressive groups and forced to say this as if it was a hostage video, and then it was used to this great effect. If you're a politician, you're responsible for the words that you say.
Right.
And I think what that speaks to more generally is how the tendency from a lot of Democratic leaders to not have really any base set of principles in mind, and then just pick up things stray from whatever group says that we have 10,000 votes that we can get you. And it ends up getting Democrats into trouble because, if you look at the actual realignments in American politics in the last 100 years, there are really only two. There's FDR and there's Ronald Reagan.
Right.
And what FDR and Ronald Reagan had in common is that they persuaded the public that they believed in their views, and that they were willing to enact them. And that is what I think is very lacking in the Democratic Party today.
Well,
you don't look at Kamala. You didn't look at Kamala Harris and say, "Yeah, she believes in something. She has a consistent set of beliefs." And you look at FDR, and you even look at Ronald Reagan, and you say that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, look, I don't think that she would have been the nominee had there been an actual primary, that was held a year and a half ago. I just don't think it would have been. I think she failed in 2019 for that same reason. And there may have been, some desperation in her taking, sort of like positions. But I also think that a better politician who actually did have a narrative could have said that in 2019, and it wouldn't have played a role. It doesn't matter what the Republicans are saying if you address it as like, you're talking about an edge case. But the irony is that, okay, I'm looking at this Greg Sargent piece in New
Republic.
In the New Republic. And this is also sort of fascinating because when the Dems were testing sort of messaging, voters didn't hold Trump responsible for appointing the Supreme Court justices to overturn Roe v. Wade. They didn't believe Trump himself was sincerely anti-choice. They didn't find him personally responsible for the fall of Roe, the operative said, adding voters thought he's ambivalent about abortion, perversely enough, because they didn't think he had core principles. And so people imposed upon him, and this was the failure, it seems to me, the one sort of like bedrock principle of Democratic politics is there are good Republicans. like the idea that, and I'm not saying you have to attack the voters, but the idea that they did it. Schumer did it with Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell. Biden did it with McConnell, Nancy Pelosi. We need to have a Republican Party. The whole project of MAGA extremist Republicans, as opposed to, no, it's Republicans. Donald Trump is there, like Grover Norquist said 10 years ago, give us a guy with a pulse who can hold a pen and we'll do the rest of the work. That's what's going to happen here. Donald Trump will say, like, guys, I want the thing so that I can make the money, and then you guys handle the rest. And that's what's going to happen. And if you do not fuse the Republican Party to someone like Donald Trump, this is what you get.
Him.
This is what you get.
I just want to add to that really quickly because we're seeing in Nevada that apparently there were people that like tens of thousands of voters that just showed up to vote for Trump and then didn't vote for anyone else down ballot.
Not only didn't vote for Sam Brown, was the Republican Senate candidate, but in Nevada it's very unique where you can actually vote for none of the above in all races. It's one of the few states where you can actually do that. And in that Senate race, there were tons of none of the above votes in that Senate race, almost enough to swing the election. So it wasn't just that they were like, I'm voting for Trump and nobody else. I'm voting for Trump and I'm actively not voting. Right. Like I'm actively saying none of you in the Senate race.
So to Sam's point, this strategy has in effect exceptionalized him outside of the Republican Party, and people are dissatisfied with the establishment of both parties. So with their saying all these Republicans hate him, well, they hate the Republicans too, some of these voters, and they hate the Democrats. So they're going to go with the guy that is reviled by others. And he travels well on social media, and he has great name recognition, where she had an issue there too.
The other thing I would say is that I think we need to do a better job of critically looking at public opinion. Public opinion polls seem to be driving too much conversation in Democratic politics more generally. And I don't believe that these narrators that you talk about who said, Trump's not, I don't hold him responsible for that. I don't believe they are reliable narrators of their own lives and their own thoughts. I am extremely skeptical that they aren't saying that for any other reason than to make an excuse for themselves. That people compartmentalize, they rationalize, and they wanted to vote for Trump because they paid $4 a pound for something they paid $2 a pound for before, and they're not going to let something like women's lives and women's reproductive rights get in the way.
Well, I think that's true, but I do think that like if you give them the opportunity to rationalize it, then they'll take it. And if you don't give them the opportunity to rationalize, you're going to get more votes. I mean, I agree with you. People do all sorts of mental gymnastics to follow where they want to go. But if you make those gymnastics harder, sometimes they don't go there. Right. Like, I mean, that's the reality of it. Like, I think like the reason why
it's like you can't fight something with nothing. And, too often Democrats fight something with saying, see, they're going to,
100%. This is all
the idea of
plan
negative
beats no
partisanship.
plan.
Right.
This is all
the idea
plan
of
beats no plan.
partisanship has suffused Democratic strategy to the extent that, I mean, it really is that I can really show you respected people on the Democratic left saying things like policies don't matter, like period, end stop. Policies don't matter. Helping people doesn't matter. What you do in office doesn't matter. I don't know what they believe does matter in that instance, but the point is that they have bought their own bullshit. That I'm sorry, can I say that?
Yes.
Whatever. They've bought their own bullshit that the only thing that matters is demonizing your opponent. And I think what the electorate has figured out is that actually, if all you're offering me is how bad this other guy is, then you're not offering me anything to grab onto. And I know what I just paid for gas, or I know what I know what I used to pay in these instances, and I'm just going to go in the other direction.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. A plan is always, you may not have liked Donald Trump's plan, but he had a plan that people could affirmatively say like, well, at least he's going to do something. And
not just a plan, but a brand, which
it
is a
becomes
message.
the same thing. I mean, on some level, it's a narrative that things go into it.
But Democrats are struggling to brand themselves or come up with a narrative in this new information environment that's like increasingly fractured and corroded. And it's difficult for them to come up with anything, especially because they're juggling all these constituencies that we describe. Never Trump Republicans we want them on board, and we whatever. And how can they be the party of unions when they're also courting over $100,000 voters with their messaging?
Like two things. Number one, to Emma's point, popular front politics are messy. I mean, it's just hard to stitch a coalition together like that and keep everybody happy. But the second thing is I want to go back to what I said at the beginning. I mean, we are in an era of perpetual change elections, and the only way that ends is if the electorate becomes satisfied that they're going to get what they want out of a term of office. Trump failed in that opportunity 4 years ago. We're going to see if he can succeed with, he had a unified Republican control of government in 2017. He didn't do a whole lot with it. We're going to, other than tax cuts, which he's going to get again. We're going to see what he can do in this 4-year term. And if he fails to deliver, then we're going to have the continuation of the ping pong match. The difference is, as we've been saying, Trump at least has a vision for what that delivery is, and I don't think Democrats have that vision.
Yeah, and I just to reiterate your point about those people, and I can off the top of my head, I'm thinking like the Matt Iglesias and the Jonathan Chaits, and about deliverism doesn't work, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things about having policies that favor providing the most amount of people with the most amount of benefit is that it makes it harder for the Mark Cubans or whomever it is to come in and muddy the message. They stay away at that point. I mean, like, who you're providing for also dictates the kind of campaigns you can run, because they're the ones that are you're relying on their support for. Like, your constituencies matter. And I think like the idea, aside from deliverism, sort of like may take some time. In fact, I think, we have clear indication that some of it was also pullbackism and, we're going to take it backism.
Imagine undeliverism.
Right. Yes. Like a sort of an undeliverism. But
here's the other thing I want to say, though. I think Trump gained an insight into how politics works in his first term. And that insight is that the structural nature of American politics is pretty broken, that there are high veto points, there's a scleroticism within the bureaucracy, there's an inability to get things done. Project 2025 was a response to that. It says, well, actually, if you want to think about how you're going to, provide your agenda and move your agenda forward, you actually have to neutralize these veto points. You have to take them out one by one. And that, I think, is, we'll see if that works, but that, I think, is what was learned. Now, unfortunately—
Can I just add to that? Peter Thiel was out there, 8 months ago saying this is like Weimar Germany, and we need, people are tired of liberal democracy, and we need to widen the Overton window in terms of like how we deliver services. And again, fascism delivers services, not necessarily for as broad a base as we want, but for some, right? Like, I mean, that's
that's true. And, but the tension with that, the tension with, I'm going to put a bunch of loyalists in place, we're going to break every norm we haven't broken already, and we're going to move things forward. Like, a good example of that is the fact that Trump is demanding that the Senate adjourn so they can do recess appointments of all his cabinet nominees at once. He just is, there's this recognition that it took a long time to get my people in place, and that slowed down what I was able to do for people, or whatever, in whatever conception he has of that. And even though I have 53 Senate votes, I don't want to wait. And so there's going to be this constant demand for propulsive forward motion, and breaking the kinds of restraints on the system. That's going to be the dominant theme. In tension with that is the other dominant theme of the first Trump presidency, that is going to be retained, which is kleptocracy, which is rampant corruption, where friends getting favors is the dominant perspective of what goes on. And so, you asked at one point, where does the prospect come in, or where does media come in? I think that is a key area. We, Zach Carter had a post-mortem piece where he talked about restoring an era of public accountability. And not just the media, but Democrats themselves, through their various engines in oversight, have a responsibility to do that. And because there's going to be a lot of targets for that accountability.
I just want to also just cite, and then we'll let you go. Ben Rhodes had an interesting piece in the Times on the day after, citing his, sort of studying authoritarian government. And he says, when the Democrats are out there saying protect democracy, what a lot of people are hearing is protect the thing that has, in some instances, immiserated me. So what's the point? And, democracy needs to deliver for as many people as possible. Otherwise, people become skeptical of it for a period of time. And hopefully we're not in one of those periods. David Dayen, executive editor of the American Prospect, can't encourage people enough to go over, read your magazine. It's going to be one of those.
And co-host of the Organized Money podcast, which
yes.
are continuing through the end of the year. OrganizedMoney.fm. You will get every episode delivered to your mailbox. We have great episodes coming up, and that's with my co-host Matt Stoller. And check that out.
All right, folks. Thank you, David. Really appreciate it. We'll talk to you
Thanks
soon.
so much.
All right, thanks.
All right, folks. We're going to head into the fun half, wherein maybe we rebrand this.
But I
for the
mean,
next
just
couple of years.
The
but
done half.
The done.
The David talking about how that like Trump is promising a streamlined, almost like government bureaucracy. The Democrats can't even talk about repealing the filibuster.
I mean, that's the problem with the Project 2025 that I always thought is like, it's one, it's horrible, and two, there is nothing remotely on the Democratic side that would get people excited. Like, what is our plan for taking power and actually like the actual real problems, like, I don't know, climate change or what is happening to people in the cost of living crisis? Like, where's the urgency?
Yeah, I mean, this, let's face it, like having a purposeful recess so that he can get bypass Senate confirmation for his, even when he's got a likely 53 seat majority, but bypass Senate confirmation for all of these positions. This is what we talk about when we talk about a threat to democracy. And, it's going to be problematic. It's going to be problematic. These people are going to, they're going to overreach, but there's going to be less and less opportunity, it seems to me, to hold them accountable for that. And I think, that notion of like the American prospect and the, public accountability for this stuff. I mean, in some respects, that's why, at least initially, I'm not as concerned about them having both the House and the Senate and the presidency, because at least then it becomes explicit in the way that, hopefully should not be hard to communicate. The biggest damage that we're going to see, in my estimation, is still going to come from the courts. It's going to come from administrative action and undermining the administrative state. That is just like not as obvious to people when they vote to repeal, or they won't vote to repeal the Affordable Care Act, but they will severely undercut it in a way that maybe people will be able to get slightly less expensive health insurance if you're under the age of 35. But when you get sick, insurance companies are going to be able to, it's either going to be through the roof for people who are older or with pre-existing conditions, or when you get sick, you're going to find out like, oh, I've run out of health insurance. How did that happen?
Yeah. Lou Stool writes in, I just want to clarify this. Please recall this June, you guys were staunchly anti-primary, just saying. I just want to clarify our position on that. That's not what we were saying. We were against the idea of a blitz primary in the convention, which is what was being floated.
In June? Was I in June of this year?
Yes.
Yes, definitely
100%.
Anti-primary.
Right.
Of course.
Right.
Listen, again, and this is why I think like the mistake is, I don't think it's like people, I'm not going to vote for Harris because there wasn't the proper imprimatur from a primary. The value of a primary in this instance would have been the candidate would have had a better sense of what to run on, what was going to work and what was not going to work. And that one would have survived the primary. In a 3-week primary or a 6-week primary, whatever that is, that's nothing. There's nothing there. There's nothing that a candidate's going to learn in a 6-week primary. It's just not going to be the case. They're not going to get a sense of what's going on in the country any more than they had already. They're going to make a bet that this is going to carry them through, 3 weeks, and that's it. And so
This was the best case scenario with Biden dropping out as late as he did. That was the best case that we could have had, and that was what we were advocating for.
Yeah, I mean, if maybe Bernie and AOC said we should have an open primary or something like that, then maybe the thing would be different. But nobody even close to the situation was thinking there's opportunity by opening this thing up. It was like, we'll probably get Gavin Newsom or something.
That was the rumor. The rumor was Pelosi wanted Gavin Newsom, and that's why Biden, right after he dropped out, endorsed Harris right away. He thought he could continue his legacy. She kept on his entire campaign staff. She never threw him under the bus. I mean, we all know where the fish rots from Biden down, and that was the best set of circumstances we could have had given the time constraints.
Thomas from Texas, every right-wing friend of mine talked about how the Dems were the actual undemocratic party for that reason. I mean, I have no doubt that your right-wing friends were using that as a talking point, but that does not mean that's what inhibited any of the election. It's absurd.
Because also Trump and they didn't do a open primary in like 2018, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, give me a break.
I mean, I was saying at the time in like 2022 that there should be some challenge here and Biden should step aside, and he did not, and that was where the die were cast.
Yep.
All right, folks, we're gonna head in to the fun half. Just a reminder to you. Your support makes this show possible. And
we are hemorrhaging followers.
We are hemorrhaging. We're hemorrhaging followers. Red alert. Your support does two things. One, it allows us to grow. And two, it inoculates us from stuff like YouTube algorithms and advertiser boycotts. Sometimes we deal with those. Most times we don't. Your membership provides us the security that makes this show possible to both survive and thrive. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. We do not keep anybody out for money reasons. So if you do not have the resources at this time, send us an email at majorityreporters@gmail.com. Put in the subject line, help with membership. We will help you with membership. With that said, give us a little bit of time. Takes a little time. We're a little bit slow with these things, without a doubt, particularly around these days. But we don't lock anybody out for money.
For telling Sam what to do, we might lock you out.
There are other instances I will actually lock you out. Yes, if you if you threaten me with your membership, I have issues. And if you say like I'm going to quit if you keep talking like this, that's the way you'll get locked out. That is a psychological problem I have. I do not respond well to that. But we never want the show to be a source of financial stress for you and keep people out for that reason. Also, justcoffee.coop. They're a co-op. They're the longest sponsor this program has had. Even predates this show, actually. They are a co-op and they treat their suppliers. You can, on every bag, you can literally trace where that coffee has come from and what the prices were paid to the various people who worked to provide that coffee for you. Justcoffee.coop. Emma.
ESPN will be talking about this past week in the NFL. My Giants are the worst team in the NFL. Keep it up, guys. We want that first overall pick and more. Aaron Rodgers just completely collapsing. New York sports are in a bad way. YouTube.com/ESPN show.
And on Left Reckoning for Left Reckoning Patreon, patreon.com/Left Reckoning. This Sunday, we talked about Chuck Schumer's appearance on C-SPAN in 2016, where he said that they expect the economic turmoil in the Midwest to give them a bunch of senators from that part of the country, and that for every people they lose in working class Western Pennsylvania, they gain 2 in the suburbs. Spoiler alert, that did not happen.
Nope.
Patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
Bryce from LA, how can I give you all more money than just a single membership? I'm no Gregorian, but I can afford more than a single membership. we actually, I think,
should have the Gregorian.
We should.
The
We're going to
Gregorian
introduce
level.
the Gregorian level. Yes. That'll be maybe somewhere between the Mike Cernovich can kiss my ass membership level, and you can become the highest membership we have, of course, is the Sam Seder membership, where you literally basically take over the show. And I think my plan originally was that I would go to like Cozumel or somewhere in Mexico, and you do the show. You also have to live with my family and deal with all the family stuff now. The family situation has changed a little bit. The kids are older. One's off in college.
One less cat to take care of.
Yeah. Oh.
Sorry, Sam.
Well done. Jesus, Matt. Your bedside manner needs a little work, buddy. But yes, so maybe we need to up it, because now it's almost like livable. All right. See you in the fun half.
3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now. And I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow.
What? What is that going on?
It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second.
The Majority Report.
Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.
What is up, everyone?
Nomi Key.
You did it. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false.
No, I'm sorry. Women's.
Stop talking for a second. Now let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7A?
Yes.
Hi, me? Is it?
Yes.
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello, is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? No sound.
Every single freaking day. What's on your mind?
Sports. We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
I'm gonna go throw up.
Who libertarians?
They're so stupid, though.
Common sense says, of course.
Gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him.
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge Matt.
I'm positively quivering. I believe 96, I want to say.
857-210-35 501 1 half 3 8s
9/11, for instance.
$3,400, $1,900.
5 4 $3 trillion sold. It's a zero-sum game.
Actually, you're making me think less of it.
But let me say this. Poop.
You can call it satire. Sam goes, it's satire.
On top of it all,
Yeah.
my favorite part about you is just like every day, all day, like
Yeah.
everything you do.
Without a doubt. Hey, buddy, we see you. All right, folks.
It's just the week being weeded out, obviously.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out. I don't know.
But you should know.
People just don't like to entertain ideas anymore.
I have a question. Who cares?
Our chat is enabled, folks.
I love it.
I do love that.
Look, gotta jump. Gotta be quick. I gotta jump.
I'm losing it, bro.
2 o'clock. We're already late, and the guy's being a dick. So screw him. Sent to a gulag?
Outrageous.
Like, what is wrong with you?
Love you, bye.
Love you. Bye-bye. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Some IMs. Texas left. Welcome, Sam. I voted for Kamala, and I do think as progressive and a Latino, we could have changed her views. Could have.
I don't know if we could have changed them. They would have been better than the views of the Trump administration.
Without a doubt.
From the start, though.
the T-bone. California votes not to ban. Yes, I'm sorry. I think I misstated that. I'm being told by the